What's up, guys? Welcome to the live stream. We're going to get started in just a couple minutes. Let me know in the chat if you're there, if you can hear me okay, if everything sounds all right. Thanks for joining us. It's going to be a fun one. Josh. If you guys didn't know, which I don't know how you would, but Josh is from Texas, and he and his family made the trip up to hang out on our night of worship last weekend. It was an awesome surprise. So, and then he's here on the live stream. So thanks, man. It was a good bud. Who else is out there in the house today, hopping on the live stream with us? Glad to have you. Let me know in the chat. Woo! From Ghana, let's go. Which conference? Churchfront conference? Haven't been asked. What's up, Tobias? What's up, Dustin? You made it. Oh, thanks. If they ask me, I will. We'll see. Hello there, friends, and welcome back to another Friday live stream. It's going to be a great day. Come on, hop in the chat with us today, and I want the chance to get to visit with you guys. We have an awesome guest that's going to be coming on in just a moment, the one and only Drake Kelch. And if you guys have any questions about broadcast, live stream stuff for church tech things, he is the man to ask. Many times I've reached out to him and been like, what do you think about this lens? Or just, you know, he's got a lot of experience. And so we actually have 3 live streams that we're going to be evaluating and giving feedback to that you guys submitted for. And then after Drake gets done, we'll do some more. So if you still want to submit that live stream, you can do that in the chat, or not in the chat, in the description of this video. There's a link to the Google form. That way I can get all those details and everything. But if you're going to ask a question, do me a favor. Just put like a Q : and then the question. It'll just be easier for me to find over here on my stuff. So thank you, Dustin. He says, dude, the video streams keep getting better. Let's go. Oh, James, hello from New York City. What's up? Tuning in from Iowa. Ethan, come on. Great to have you on here. And also Devin from Wisconsin. So be thinking about those, you know, questions you might have. Maybe you're looking to upgrade things, you're looking to improve some systems in your church, or maybe you've had some issues that you just need maybe some advice about. That's why we're here on this Friday live stream. So without further ado, I would like to bring in our guest, Drake Kelch. What's up, Drake? How's it going today?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on the stream.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for joining us. Drake, why don't you just, if people don't know who you are for some reason, maybe they just, they're not social media people and they don't follow along with the church tech world. Tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of like your history with church technology, maybe?
Sure, yeah. My background is I worked at Bethel Church for just around the 12, 13 year mark. The last position I had at the church was the production manager, so I kind of oversaw like all of the production there at the church. I did a lot of touring, doing lighting, audio, and video for Bethel, and then stepped into doing integrations. That was kind of like my next job that I stepped into, which I kind of realized that I don't love the integration world. I definitely love the live event world, but I love helping churches, and that was kind of the whole point of doing the integration. So I still love helping out churches, doing a lot of consulting and trainings and that kind of thing, just less of the actual like integrating the equipment type of thing.
Gotcha.
But we do live events. I now own a company called Lad Designs, and it's expanding into Lad Rentals this year, which is really fun. But we do live events, designs. We can support the event. We can supply a lot of the equipment now. We help you with your pre-production. If you've never done an event before, we can come in and help you with like, here's how to plan an event and do the whole thing. So that's kind of what we do now, on top of doing like the concert films and the other video stuff that I get to do.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like, that's what we do. Yeah, it's been a lot
That's
of
cool,
fun.
man. Now, what is the emblem on your shirt?
This is the Lad Designs logo. A good friend of mine that I met at Bethel years ago. It's probably been 10 years now. He's a designer. He's done some stuff for Adidas and some other like designer stuff. And I reached out to him and I was like, hey, we need a logo for this company that we're starting. What do you think? And he, I sent him a few of like the references of like, I like these companies kind of thing. And funny enough, he didn't actually like use any of those references, which is great. But he came up with like, what do we want to be as lads? He was taking the lad like thing, like when we're young lads, what do we want to be? And he's German as well. And it's like superheroes. And so that's where he kind of came up with like this superhero looking face, which is kind of like, that's kind of the backstory to the logo, and it just stuck. And so now it's like, that's the logo that we put everywhere. And you kind of, when you're developing a business, you got to have like that one little, like the Nike swoosh or like the Apple logo, something that doesn't have your name in it, but when people see the icon, they know what it is. And so that's
cool, man. No, I like it.
That, yeah.
That's nice. So you kind of move from serving in the local church at Bethel to doing more integration, and now even more like consulting and that type of stuff, and doing live production stuff. If you guys don't follow Drake on Instagram, you should, because he's always sharing really cool stuff over there. But like, what's a fun project that you've gotten to be a part of recently that you can kind of tell us about?
Yeah. So one of the most recent projects that we just did in January was Bridgetown Church up in Portland, Oregon. They do this conference every year called Holy Spirit Conference, and this year they decided to move it out of their church because their church only seats like 600 or 700, and they wanted to get more of like the 2,000 to 3,000 range. So they moved it to the Oregon Convention Center and used one of their ballrooms. And they brought us in because they're like, hey, we usually do conferences at our church where everything's set up and dialed. We don't have to think about it, to a blank space, a room with nothing in it. So we came in and helped them with every asset of production, lighting, video, because we live streamed it as well, and like the set design. But the cool part is that we took the ballroom, which any of these convention centers are pretty stark and just kind of bland looking, and we tried to make it feel like their home, like their main church. And so like one of their biggest things, their whole wall, I kind of helped to do this actually when I was doing integration, but their whole stage wall is perfectly white. and then they uplight it with color. And that whole wall is actually acoustic treatment. So it's white acoustic treatment that covers their entire wall. It's on Octane AVL's website.
Is
so
it? All right, let's pull it up real quick and see, because I'm curious to kind of show everybody what's going on here. And let me go to Octane's.
Yeah, it should be octaneavl.com, I believe. And then their portfolio or whatever it is. And then, yep, that's it right there, that top one.
This right here?
Yeah.
Bridgetown, Portland?
Yeah. So if you click on that, you can kind of see, like, so that whole wall is white acoustic treatment.
That's
it's
cool.
all custom made for their stage. And then they have that stained glass, and then they have that offset projector screen. And they like uplight it and do different color, and that's just kind of their vibe. And their building's really, really old, red brick building with some stained glass on the side. So we decided to try to keep the theme and not go kind of crazy how we might do a design. And it's an all-white stage with an offset projector and a fake stained glass piece that's on the stage
for whenever you did it in the ballroom.
Yeah, actually it's on our website too. I should have sent you photos, but
it's all good.
So it's like we tried to keep their theme of their church and move it into the ballroom and just make it bigger. And they had like 2,300 people in that ballroom, which is really cool. So
wow.
That's a fun project. It's always fun to like stretch your like what you do, because it's really easy. I feel like for us, it's like, okay, we can make a cool design with all these lights and have haze and like, all this stuff. It's like, whatever. But when it's like, hey, we want no haze, we want it to look like our church, we want people to feel like they're at home, all these things. It's like, okay, cool. Like, let's design something different. And I think that's where that project was really fun.
As somebody who's like, I feel like you have been involved in a lot of the bigger production stuff. I mean, tell me some of the people you've worked with on live event stuff. Have you done am I dreaming like Carrie Job stuff, Jesus Culture?
I've done some Jesus Culture stuff back in the day, like back when they were kind of still a part of Bethel. We're actually doing next weekend, we're providing lighting and some visual stuff for their My City conference that's happening next weekend. So we're kind of moving back to working with them, which is really cool. Corey Asbury, yeah. Carrie Joe, I did a one-day Houston event that had Carrie Joe at it, and then I also was on one of the elevation tours that Carrie and Cody were on. So not directly, but I have been on events with them, yeah.
Well, as somebody who's been around some of these bigger churches and movements, I was curious what your thoughts are. Are churches starting to move away from the completely black box thing, and kind of is the white, you see like Mosaik Church is like all white, I think. Is that just like kind of one-offs, people doing something different, or is the pendulum starting to swing back the other way a little bit?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, more and more white box churches are popping up, which is really interesting. Like, there's a new church that I visited in Dallas. I think it's Shoreline Church, I believe is the name of that church. Fully white room, white PA, like some white truss. Like, they went like all out in the white, which is kind of cool. It's cool, and then it's also like, man, the maintenance on that is going to be nuts to keep up,
and just like hiding things. I mean, that's the beauty of a black ceiling, right? Is that, I mean, how do you hide a dactyl cam in a white ceiling? You can have white dactyl cams.
We could paint it white. Yeah, that's for sure. You could custom order that one. Yeah, I mean, they have like some white PA and then like some white truss, and then some of the truss is black, and then they have, which is really funny. Andrew and I were talking about this yesterday. Is like they have a lot of LED, and it was like, it kind of seems funny to me because it's like you went all white and then you added a ton of LED, which is black. So you have all these black squares everywhere when it's off. Obviously, a lot of times they make it the LED white and with black text, so it like kind of blends in a little bit. But I think some of that is just people bored of the black box thing and just like, let's do something different.
Just to be different, yeah.
Just to be different, and like let's try to do something creative, which I'm all for. Like,
Yeah.
even when I was leaving Bethel's, like they started to paint some of the rooms white, which make them feel bigger. And the main sanctuary is still like the black box stage.
Sure.
I think if you do enough set changes and enough productions that are coming in and out, that's probably your safer bet that you can kind of do more with.
Yeah. Well, guys, drop in the chat some questions for us before we jump into these live streams. Drake's specialty, at least from my vantage point, is he's super knowledgeable about just camera gears and broadcast video, especially. And one thing that, we've been, the rumor about you is that you were one of these pioneers of the cinematic broadcast. And I know what that means, but like, if someone was to ask you, like, what does that even mean? How would you define what is a cinematic broadcast? Cinematic's kind of one of those abstract words anyways.
Yeah. Yeah, it can definitely be like one of those catchy, like, words to use. But the cinematic broadcast was basically, we got really tired of seeing, like, the 60p just standard traditional broadcast that you might see with, like, sports or, any of the live TV shows that you kind of watch that are like the Jimmy Fallons or like those types of shows. Like it's all shot in 60 using broadcast cameras. And I'd watched other people over the years, like Nathan Grubbs. He shot all of the Jesus Culture stuff and did a lot of the Bethel music, early Bethel music, like the one that we did on the mountaintop overlooking the Shasta Lake. Like Nathan shot all that, and it was all done with Blackmagic cameras or red cameras or like in this cinematic feel. And he did a really good job of that. Most of that was all post-production, but it's like, why can't we take that and do it live? That was kind of the whole goal. Like whenever you see, for example, like Elevation, they have a live stream, and then Elevation, they put out their music videos or their live concert music videos. If you watch them, they're not the same at all. Their broadcast is very broadcast, and their like music videos are very cinematic and they look really good. And so it's like, why can't we do the cinematic part live?
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the whole, that's where it all started from. And when I took over the video department at Bethel, or it came underneath me, we switched over to Blackmagic Ursas, the original 4Ks, but even before the Pros came out, put everything in 24 frames per second, because that is the big difference, is going from 60 to 24. Most movies and music videos and those types of things are all shot in 24 frames. They have all the motion blur, and so getting a camera that could do that, and then that's kind of like the big step. And then we started using DSLR glass because that's what's are accessible to get, is like the 70 to 200s and the 24 to 70s. It's just like they're faster lenses and they're cheaper. And now, moving in, there's like some larger cinema lenses that we've started to incorporate, that now a lot of these companies like Fuji or Canon are putting servos and things on their cinema glass to kind of bridge the gap between broadcast and cinema. I think more and more people, even like the Super Bowl, like they have what they call their depth of field camera or whatever that's on the sidelines. And it is like, last I heard, it was an FX9, but they do that because it has that high depth of field, and they use a cinema camera, and usually it's kind of, you could see it because it switches from 60 to that 24, and it's just like all the motion blur is back in it. So that's kind of the whole route that we've decided to take, and it's kind of taken off. I feel like there's a lot of controversy about it. Some people think that you should never stream in 24. It used to be really, really hard to stream in 24 because the equipment didn't accept 24 frames. And now, these manufacturers have realized, people are doing this, we should just make it easy to do.
Well, speaking of 24p, we do have a question here. Caleb says, our broadcast is 24p and our shutter angle is 144 degrees. Thoughts on the slightly faster shutter than normal?
Yeah, we shot, I think Bethel still shoots in 144, and the reason for that was the LED wall on stage.
Yeah.
It was literally just, that was the shutter angle that we had to do to get rid of the banding and the flicker. And so sometimes you're very much stuck into, you have to choose a shutter angle that won't cause any flicker or banding with all your LED on stage. Sometimes I shoot 144 because it's like definitely a look. If you want that look, it can be kind of cool, and you can tell the difference between 144, 172, and 180. Obviously, traditionally, and like the real angle that you should be shooting at, again,
180.
creativity, it's 180, but like you can be creative, and you don't have to follow the rules there, basically.
Yeah. No, that's cool. That's a good question, though. Thanks, Caleb. Hopefully that helps you. And he said the same thing. Yeah, banding is their issue as well. So, and if you don't have a camera that has shutter angle, like I know our GH5s have a thing called synchro scan, which you can do shutter angle on a GH5.
Yeah.
But synchro scan allows you to dial in a really specific shutter speed instead of shutter angle, since a lot of people that watch my channel don't have cinema cameras,
right.
know. So they're not talking
Canon has something similar too, like the C200, C300s. It's like not, it might be something similar to that, but it's not a shutter speed or shutter angle. They have like their own thing to dial in a specific frequency to get rid of banding. The Red Komodos, you can literally type in or any Red camera, you can type in your shutter angle, so you can do like 144.3 or 172.6, like, so you have that decibel range, which helps get rid of banding as well.
No, that's really cool. Justin has a question, then we're going to jump into our first live stream review. He says, what live streaming softwares do you recommend? And so for me, I would say it just depends on your workflow and how you want to get things into the live stream. A lot of people will do everything hardware encoder. I'm a big fan of that. But let's say you don't have the inputs and you need to add your lyrics on top. There's always things like OBS or Ecamm, or there's so many out there now. Like, in a pinch, have you used any softwares that you've liked?
I think I've used OBS. That's like, that's kind of my go-to for like cheap, dirty, like obviously it's free and you can just kind of do a lot with it.
Yeah.
I love using like the A10 Mini Pros to stream with, or the web presenters, because you can send your feed and you can send your lyrics into it, and it just works. I know RESTREAM has their own like software now, which I've messed with. The last stream that I did, I literally just used an A10 Mini Pro and sent it to Vimeo, and that was it. It can be super easy, but obviously there's really expensive ways to do it too. It kind of depends on what you need. Yeah,
there's so many factors. How much bandwidth do you have? Do you need a program or a software like a service like RESTREAM where it sends it on to multiple destinations? That's what we use. We send from our web presenter HD to RESTREAM, and then that hits YouTube and Facebook. Right. And I'll leave a link in the description for you guys. I actually just this week became an affiliate with RESTREAM. Cool. And if you guys want to sign up for a free month, you can check that out. So I'll post that after the live stream. But let's dive into our first live stream review. All right, here we go. We are reviewing Mosaik Family Church, I believe. And they have, let's see, an ATEM television studio 4K. And they are using 3 pocket 6Ks with Sigma Art 24-70, 5100, 70-200. Everything's filmed on 2.8. They also have a pocket 4K and 1 wireless, 2 wired. So let's check out Mosaik Family. I think they're in Germany. So there you go. A little shout out to your homage there. And here we go with some volume. All right, we're just going to let that keep playing in the background. But my first thoughts are like, I'm super impressed. Like, I can see a lot of inspiration they've taken maybe from the Bethel type streams where the handheld type movements that they're going for on things. Love the shallow depth of field they're getting with the fast glass on those wireless guys up here at the front of stage. Did anything jump out at you necessarily?
Yeah, I would say the same thing. Like, with the few cameras that they have, they're doing a really good job, you know, telling the story of what's happening, because that's the whole goal, is that we're trying to tell the story. Great movements, like that drum to keys shot that they have. Those are great movements. Nothing's like too fast and too crazy, which is really nice. I think the only things that I would say is like that shot, the lighting on the drums. I would try to get some more lighting on the stage in general, probably. It looks like they have quite a bit of light up there. I don't love like the beam, like I don't really love beams like what you have on your still frame here. I would prefer like more wash just to like get a lot of light on the stage. They could easily add a little bit of light in the crowd to kind of get rid of a little bit of like the black hole thing that's happening. But the fact that you're getting these crowd shots, you're finding people worshiping, and you're telling the story. Your cadence is really good. That they're, it's not too fast, it's not too jumpy. You're kind of listening to what's happening, which is really cool.
What do you think about those whip pans like that? Is that still going with these kind of things? We like that?
I tell people like it has to be really intentional to do that. I kind of tell my operators, like I tell them specifically to not go for, like, don't be thinking about it, but I don't mind seeing them if it's super intentional. If it's like a big movement, like, for example, on the Summer Worship Nights tour, there was one song, I think it was Battle Belongs, where it goes from Phil talking right into like the intro that's on guitar. And so like every night we kind of planned a whip to where it was like a reverse of Phil talking, and then it was a quip. The guitar player was literally right behind the camera op, so he went from the reverse of Phil, flipped around and got the guitar. And in that song, in that moment, because it goes from like something super kind of down and chill to like this really giant intro, it like adds to the energy that you're seeing.
Yeah.
And so it's like when you have a specific moment like that, I feel like you can easily throw one of those things in there, but definitely not like every shot all the time. That can get a little crazy, I feel like, and like.
Have you ever done any live whip transitions where it's like, hey, and how do you communicate that as a director? Like you're gonna pan to the right, and then the next guy's gonna also pan to the right whip, and then we're gonna cut on 3 or something. How do you do that? Because I've always wanted to do that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the only transitions like that we've ever had are all an accident.
Okay.
Like they were never planned. I feel like there was one really cool one that's on my Instagram. I should like repost that reel because it's like way down at the bottom. But like, yeah, one of our drum op, whipped from something to drums, and then someone else whipped from like bass to guitar, something like that. And this was when Chad Vegas was there and directing, and so like he caught it in the middle. And I think part of that was the ops were so good that they also were catching onto his rhythm and his cadence. And so both of them had the same thought at the same time of like, he's going to cut from 5 to 6. And they both decided to whip at the same time, and he caught it right in the middle. And that was like an accident. And we all saw it. We were like, that's epic. Could never reproduce that shot. Like that was just like one of those ones that are like, yeah, you can definitely do it. When I do post-production on stuff, sometimes I'll find them and purposely leave them in there. And a lot of times it's like, yeah, it'll be like them leaving their shot or them getting to their shot, and I'll add that in there. But it's a lot easier in post-production because you can fine-tune it, and if it doesn't work, you can get rid of it kind of thing.
That's cool. One thing I have seen here on theirs is something that I think a lot of people deal with, and that's something we also sometimes deal with, is the lack of communication clearly that like, hey, you're good, you're off. Like every once in a while they'll be on a wide shot and then maybe he thinks he's off and so he puts his camera down. As a director, like how are you clearly communicating when you're live, when you're not? Are you doing it by numbers, by names? What is their verbiage? It's
definitely by number, and usually I usually just do like the 1 1, like I don't say, standby or live type of thing. It's just like if you hear the number the first time, that's standby. If you hear the number the second time, you're live kind of thing. The one thing I do add into stuff is like I will tell the operator, especially if it's a longer shot, I'll just reiterate like, hey, hold your shot, like you're still live, hold your shot, especially if it's like a long shot. I just keep telling them like, you're still live, hold your shot, it looks good, and just keep reiterating that to them. That way they know and they don't think, oh, did I miss something? Am I, not live anymore? That's kind of the language that I would use,
I also think one note that I would give that I think could take it to another level is if your roamer that's in the back here was on a gimbal and they could do kind of that walking, panning with the gimbal, that just creates that dolly rhythm track type shot.
Yeah.
And you've got all these hands raised, people really engaged, and it would just be a little more exciting of a shot and add energy because you can either walk fast, slow, and then you could stand still if you're on that gimbal. So that's something I would maybe try as well. But overall, like I think they're killing it. Like their audio mix sounded great too. So
I think the video looks really good. I think that with what you guys have, you're doing a great job of telling that story and showing what's happening. I think most of my feedback was almost on the lighting side of things rather than the video side of things, which lighting plays a lot into video. But yeah, I think that your shots look good, your framing looks good. You're really telling that story.
That's cool, man. So give me a little tutorial tip tricks from Drake. If you are trying to get your white balance set and you have lots of different cameras, maybe even from different brands, for a church that has the time, like I'm not talking about a live event where you're running in, getting stuff real quick. What's the best way for us to dial that in across brands that's kind of maybe like just a decent way to do it? Because that's something people struggle with all the time.
Yeah. I would say it definitely starts with like picking the white balance of the key light that you want on your stage, like in your room with your naked eye. Like you got to pick that white balance that you want. Typically, I live like right in the middle. I think 56K is too stark in person. Like it's just, they can look too white and almost blue or green. And then the 27K or 32K even, like down in the lower end, just is too orange on the skin tone. And so I like to live in like that 38 to like 42, like somewhere in that range.
Okay.
Just because I feel like, and I think the last conference we did, we ended up at 45, but it was just like, it just looks natural in the room. Like in person, they look good. And then you can start, dialing in your cameras once you have a good like white balance in the room that you like.
So would you turn off everything except your key light and then like bring a white card on stage and like bring a camera up there, or like use some type of app, or what's your go-to?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first step would definitely be just put all your cameras at that number that you think, that key light is at. There's like the Luminex like phone app with like the little dongle. I don't even know where mine is, but like that you can like see your white balance. I might have it right here, actually.
A lot of our churches have mixed key lighting, even though that's not a great solution, where we've got some lights at 32, some at 26 that are source 4s, and then we got some LED movers that we're trying to make work with it all, and it's just not the same thing. But something like that is cool. Does it work decently well?
Yeah, so I've compared this to, like, I had like the Seconix D800U, which is like the really expensive nice light meter, and this is like super close.
Okay.
I think my phone deleted the app, of course.
I saw those advertised and they look really intriguing.
And it helps. So if you're dealing with multiple fixtures that are different, this helps because you can take, so I have like my color temperature here. I don't know if you can,
Yep.
there we
57.
go. Yep. And so I can like get a white balance of my key light. Let's see if it actually reads it. Yeah. So you can see like I read my key light, and that's, where it's at now. And I got to get it in front of my face so that way my autofocus doesn't take over. And so this little dongle that I plug into the lightning port tells me what the color temperature is. So if you're mixing multiple lights, what I would do is I would figure out I would test the one that you can't change the color temperature of, figure out what that one's at, and then change your other ones to match it. And this, I would bring up one by one, light meter it, and then dial it in. And this also gives you like some luminance stuff too. So if you're having a hard time balancing brightness of lights, you can also check with foot candles and try to get them all on like the same level. So it's just like, I think these are like $200 or something like that.
And what's it called again?
Luminex.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, so their actual website is LUMU. That's like the name of their company. And
Lumu. Okay.
And so that dongle is cheap. I keep it in my backpack because it's like, if I need a quick reference for, white balance or whatever, I can just pop it open, click it, and then boom, I have a reference that's really, really close to what I need. So something like that helps a lot with dialing in white balance. And then from there, it's just, I would bring up all of your key light on a white card if you're struggling with, the whites being different, because every camera is going to represent it differently. And then from there, you could also add in a color checker, like a color card that has all the squares in it, because then you could get your white to look white, but you start noticing like, oh, that one's slightly magenta or that one's slightly green. And so having that color card, you can kind of like manipulate the colors.
That's cool.
The one thing to note, and if you have like, say you're mixing, you have a Pocket 4K, like classic camera that a lot of churches have, and then all of a sudden you add in a red Komodo, you're going to have to make that Komodo look like the worst camera, which is the Pocket 4K. And so you're not going to be able to get that Pocket to look like your Komodo. So you kind of have to dial back some of the settings of your nicer camera to look like your worser camera. I know that sounds funny, but like the Komodo gives you all the options for your reds, your greens, your blues, your powers, your midtones. Like you have all that control, where the Pocket doesn't give you all that control.
That's cool.
So that's where you're going to have to like balance it. You can create a LUT. That's, if you're experienced in like DaVinci or anything like that, you can easily pull in footage, try to create a LUT that works as well. There's, a lot, all the Blackmagics, the studios, the Ursas, if you run them through an ATEM, you can camera control them as well. And it gives you a lot of like control built into the switcher, which is really cool as well.
Yeah, that's neat. One other thing I've tried, since all of our cameras are like DSLR style, is I've put up the color checker with all of the key lights on, and then I've actually taken a raw photo, brought that into Lightroom, and then actually been able to, click on the different white, gray, blacks, and I really see like what the tint shift is, and then go back to the camera and try to dial that in as best I can. But no, that's white balance is super important. All right, one question before we move on to our next live stream review. Matthew asks, have you seen the Sony FR7? Do you think that style of PTZ is the future for churches that have limited volunteers but want a high level of production? Let's talk PTZs for just a couple minutes. What are your thoughts on a $10,000 FR7? That may just be the gimbal thing. I don't know if that even includes a lens.
Yeah, it doesn't. I've never played with it. I've wanted to play with it just to see what it can do. The idea with that is like you can put a better lens on, or a more like faster, nicer looking lens on a PTZ, like fully remote controlled camera. The idea I think is really cool. I think like when I think of PTZ, I want full control, and that's where I've used the Canon CRN line a ton, like the 300s, the 500s. Now they have the 700s, and like the 300s are not that like expensive. CRN 300.
Yeah, they're a couple thousand, 3,000 maybe.
Yeah, it's $2,500.
Yeah.
For a CRN 300, and it's 4K with a 20x zoom, and honestly, great depth of field and great color. And so that's where I'm like, man, for $2,500, you can get a great looking PTZ with all the control, like the zoom, focus, like that's a long zoom as well. 20x zoom is like a lot of zoom. And Canon's controllers, both of their new controllers are like amazing, especially controlling multiple PTZs. And so I have no clue what the FR7 controller even looks like or their software. So I guess I don't have a lot of experience with it enough to like give a real thought. I think the idea is really cool that you can stick your own lens on there and like have a different look.
Yeah.
I know some people are like, yeah, the future is, 10 to 20 PTZs and like that's our live stream. And I'm like, if that's what you're going for, great. Like, more props to you. But I think like, having more real cameras and getting them off of sticks, obviously that brings in the whole volunteer or staff question and like adding people to it. But like if you need a PTZ, I'm going to recommend the Canon ones a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the bang for the buck is better if you have to have PTZ. I think, for me and most of the guys who watch my channel, not to bash, but like the lower end PTZ stuff is just not worth the money. And then the higher end PTZ stuff is a big chunk of your budget that it's like for most of the guys watching this, I would rather you spend that money on a camera that you can use outside of the worship center as well. Now, if somebody, says like, hey, here's money to do just the worship center, then maybe that makes sense. But it's an expensive single use camera, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, for like 10 grand, it's like you could buy a decked out Komodo with a lens, like, and that's awesome. Or you could buy two FX30 or 3 or 4 FX30s or a couple pockets. Like there's a lot that you can get for 10 grand.
Yep.
And so that's where it's like, for a single use, you're right. The one thing that I use PTZs a lot for, which is kind of funny, is like when we do these tours and we have iMag, instead of using lipstick cameras like the little Marshall lipstick cameras, we end up using PTZs. We'll put 3 or 4 on the stage, and that way it can still give us that lock off lipstick look, but then we have more control of the camera remotely.
That's pretty neat. Okay. And then you can use those in combination with your other camera systems.
Yeah, so we might have like 4 or 5 manned cameras and then like 3 or 4 non-manned cameras. And usually like on the last tour that I was on that we did that, our rhythm operator also had the PTZ controller next to him, and we just stored presets for different looks. And so the director would just call out a look and he would just tap on the touchscreen and recall that look. And so it just was like a quick way to add a few more looks to the stream.
Man, that's good thoughts. Very good thoughts. All right, let's jump into our next live stream review. We're going to be talking about the House Kelowna. They're a little church plant in Canada trying to up their production game one small purchase at a time. Aren't we all? Right now they have 4 GH5 cameras and 1 GH4 on a slider on the keys. The GH5s have a custom V-Log LUT that's applied and then sent out over HDMI. And so they're curious about how that looks to you. They have an unmanned RSC2 on a crane for preaching worship leader shot. And it's all going into an ATEM TV Studio 4K. How can they make their wider shots more compelling, and how is the custom LUT? So let's listen and take a look at the House Kelowna.
Let the king of my heart be the fire inside my veins, the echo of my days. Oh, he is my song. Oh, you are good, you're good. Oh, you are good, you're good. Oh, you are good.
So I have some thoughts like already. I'm
Go for
curious
it,
on
man.
how this like is going to build, but like having something that is your wide room shot. So like when they came down and it was just that like lull right there, having something that you can go to wide that's just like showing kind of the whole room, and then cut to that vocal shot as soon as he starts singing would be like, and wider than this shot, like a
Right.
full room wide, would be my preference. I think the cut looks good. I'd probably speed it up a little bit. Like it seems a little like those shots are lasting quite a while, which is nothing wrong with like a slow live stream or like a slow cut or a slow rhythm. But this song, I feel like calls for, especially now, like right now, as this build, like it calls for like cut. Like I would be a little bit faster with my cuts right now.
Are you a cut on the beat kind of guy?
So you have to have the cadence. Like it's easy to have the rhythm cut on the beat, but then the cadence is like. I also tell directors this all the time. You got to cut around what they're saying, like what they're singing, and that's where the cadence comes in. So it's really I do cut rhythmically, but then I'm also thinking about what they're saying, and so a lot of times like I want them to finish like the phrase or the lyric that they're on. It's thinking about that as well. I will say, as far as the LUT goes, in my opinion, it's a little too crushed.
Okay.
Like the blacks are really black, and then the skin tone, like the three people look different to me. And so just figuring out like the light on the guy with this blue and white jacket almost looks colder than the light that's on the guy in the middle.
Of course, Drake is seeing out of the USB-C of the ATEM Mini Extreme, which always adds contrast.
Sure.
So there may
I
be a
should
little
probably watch this. I mean, you sent me the links to these. I should probably like watch them on my computer. But
No, those are good thoughts, though. I agree. I'm looking at it here on my TV, and I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying at all. And for a church plant, I wonder if they're set up and tear down. Surely not with all of this gear. I mean, they got a full drum cage that looks like the classic Bethel drum cage, the square box thing. One thing I noticed was just lighting on the pianist here. You're exposing for when there's not light on her, and then it kept sweeping onto her and really overexposing her hands. And then your drummer was pretty underexposed because maybe you just don't have time to set up lighting. I love this shot down the line. These handhelds where you had the lights pouring in from the back. Those are great. I haven't seen any wide shots, so you asked for help on wide shots.
I found one.
Oh, did you?
I clicked on it and was trying to find it. I will say the color looks a lot better on my. If you go to 30 minutes and 15 seconds. But I will say the color looks so much better when I'm watching it on my YouTube. So I probably would take my comment back about it being too crushed.
Okay.
It's a good balance now.
And that's just a quick tip for everybody. If you're pulling your ATEM feed into out of the USB-C, it's gonna change your coloring. So that's why I always advise don't do that. Either encode from the ATEM or go HDMI out into another capture card. I mean, they've kind of got a similar setup to what you did there at that church with the full white backdrop. I love the top. That's a church on the move kind of vibe with the top LED stuff.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would say is like the tape looks cool as like an element, like the LED tape up top. LED tape is not bright.
Sure.
Like it just doesn't project a lot of light, and so I would try to probably get a little bit more wash from the top in that grid that you guys have. But like, I think it looks really good. Like the white looks good. Those fixtures on the side when like the blinders when they came in.
Yeah.
I love purposely pointing lights at cameras.
Yeah.
Kind of like that. Like it gives you that flare and it looks really nice.
Yeah.
So I think that I would definitely incorporate more of that wide shot into the mix because I think that wide shot looks good. I just didn't see a lot of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. How do you feel about key light on backline people? Is it necessary, not necessary? Just let them kind of be washed in blue, purple, whatever the LED lights are doing. That's something I see a lot of.
Yeah, like me personally, I don't key light the backline. I just let them get washed with the color, and I think like that's also like the Bethel look is like, if you've watched any of the streams, there is a ton of fixtures, partly because they don't use haze, and so we fill all the black space with fixtures. There's just a ton of side light, a ton of top light, and so they're lit perfectly well, just not with the front key light.
Yeah.
And so I personally like that style. It kind of helps direct the focus on who's leading as well. One of the things that I would do all the time on tour is whoever was leading was like, for example, the key light fixture would be at 100%, and then the two BGVs, it might be at like 70 or 75%. So it's slightly dimmer, and it just helps direct your attention a little bit as to like what's going on stage. So that's also a trick. I would say, let me click back over. I mean, the key light actually looks pretty good on my
Yeah, it's not bad. Computer. It's not bad at all. I would say also when you're showing your electric guitarist, I love the move that you guys do a lot where it's like you hang on the hands for a minute, and then before you cut off, you can maybe come up to the face to kind of see who's playing.
Yep.
You can incorporate some of that. The other thing I noticed is I had it at full volume earlier, and it wasn't as loud as I would like the overall mix to be for the audio. So you might just, I love the mix. It sounds good. The snare sounds great. I'd be curious if you're sampling things or what. But maybe just mastering it a little bit more before it hits YouTube and everywhere else that it's going. Let's listen for just another minute and watch. This is a real big part of the song, so I could see faster cuts. You see the reflection of the bass player in the drum shield?
Yeah, that's always fun to try to get rid of. And that's like, the overexposure there, it's also just kind of showing the limitation of the camera. Every camera's going to have its limitation on highlights and dynamic range. And so, yeah, try your best to like find that middle ground, but also, in my opinion, if you have like a bunch of blinders and you bring it in real bright in the room, it is kind of okay to show the camera's overexposed a little bit because that's kind of what your eye's also seeing. But I'd also like, part of that wide shot is to show that, in my opinion. Like, catch what's happening with the lighting and everything. Again, you're trying to tell the story, so you want the viewers at home to feel like they're sitting in the room, kind of thing.
Absolutely. When the video director understands what's happening with the lighting cues, I feel like it goes so much better. So if your video op is not really in tandem with your lighting designer, I would try to make those kind of come together, even if that's like your video director comes to a service or even just rehearsal to see, oh, they're going to hit that big sweep up, and I could go to a wide shot then. And I mean, how in tandem are you working with lighting? Are you helping design lighting a lot of times? What are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, when it's our projects, yes. My brother does all of our lighting design and programming, and so it's real easy to like work together to help. But he also understands how to make it look good for video. I think that there's always that fine line of like lighting for the room and lighting for video. And
absolutely.
Don't like. There's definitely some places like I've consulted where it's like they lit for the room only.
Yep.
And then they're like, why does our video look like this? And it's like, well, you gotta light a little bit more intentional for the cameras as well. And so it's finding that middle ground, and that's a fun, long conversation of finding that middle ground.
Are there any common mistakes you see for people not lighting for broadcast but lighting for the room mainly? Like, what are some of the things you see people do?
Yeah, I think, and it's kind of this phrase that we've been talking about a lot, is like moody is not dark, or doesn't have to be dark. I think a lot of times what people do is like in the room, they'll turn the lights way down to make it moody. And then the cameras have no light to pick up on. And you're cranking your ISO to, 1600, 3200, and you're just trying to get any light. And that's a big common thing I see is like, oh, we wanted it to be moody, so we just turned the lights like way down or a lot of them off. And it's like, yeah, but the cameras need light to see anything. And so it's like, you can be moody with like how you choose your color or how, you know, like what your lights are doing. Like for example, instead of doing like a light blue, like a cyan or something like that, it's like make a deeper blue, and that adds a different mood, but it still is producing light. So you're changing the color rather than changing the intensity. And you are changing the intensity a little bit because you might be removing white from that color mix. And so you are removing some light, but it's like you're just changing the color and how you want it to be lit, kind of thing.
Very cool.
That's just thoughts. Like a thought. I also, real fast on their stream, skipped to their preaching. I think it looks really good. I would say his face looks slightly overexposed. Like it's like just on the edge of like being too washed out. But I was like the contrast and everything like looks really nice. It looks really sharp and crisp. It's like
it looks a little like greenish to me on this one, a little orangey greenish. I don't know if that may be the LEDs that they're kind of washing the room with. Maybe the top lid is green, maybe, or something too. So
it could be. It definitely looks a little green, and it looks like when you go to speaking, it's literally just that front shot.
Yeah.
Only as I'm scrubbing through.
Yeah.
Feel free to throw in other shots in there, like throw in your wide for reactions if people are laughing or applauding, and like throw that wide in there and stuff like that.
Yeah, because let's be real, that is the most longevity of our live streams is going to be the preaching segment. And for people that are repurposing our content for short form video, I mean, having a more dynamic preaching time is only going to benefit you and the viewer to be able to experience it like they're in the room there with you, in my opinion.
Yep. The only time I stay locked on that camera is if we're doing IMAG. Like what we did at Bethel all the time was the side screens, the IMAG screens would be that follow cam.
Yeah.
So the person in the room, it was magnified, like it was bigger. That's fine. But the live stream was a second ME, and they were cutting around between the jib and the 45 and the follow. So just throwing that out there.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, we got one more live stream to review, and before we do that, I want to do a little overrated, underrated with you, Drake. And we've got a couple questions here. One of them ties into this idea, but I want you to think of this from the perspective of for churches underneath 1,000 people. This is not the mega church. This is kind of a large church that has a little bit of a budget. You know, between 500 and 1,000 people or so. What are your thoughts, overrated or underrated? And we're going to start with what you just mentioned, IMAG.
Okay, where it might be overrated because I feel like IMAG is like whenever I want IMAG is when I'm in the back of the room and I can't see the speaker. Like,
yeah.
It makes it, I kind of laugh or chuckle like when I walk into a room and they have IMAG and the person's the same size on the screen as he is in real life. That's when it's like, is this necessary?
Yeah.
Probably not. So in that smaller side, it's probably overrated. I still think you need side screens. Like you have to have a way to present your content, announcement slides, lyrics, like whatever. But the need to have IMAG might be slightly overrated.
I think so, and I think there are some churches moving away from it, but I still see one other side effect of that is that people that do IMAG when they don't really need to, like you're saying, there's some disproportionate, things on screen, but also when you only have one ME to mix with, you hesitate on including some of those wide shots, some of the other things that you could include on your broadcast, but since it's going up onto the screens, it just doesn't really fit in the space. So I agree.
Yeah. It's like, especially, you're right. If you're doing IMAG and a live stream, you almost need a 2ME switcher.
Yeah.
Like, or two switchers, which, gets complicated. But, like, you need two different cuts.
Yeah. Okay, what about 4K streaming? Is it here? Is it still overrated?
I think it's still overrated slightly. Like, if you're building a brand new facility, by all means, put everything in 4K. Like, do it right. buy 4K cable, 4K rated cable.
Like 12G SDI kind of stuff?
Exactly. Like, pull the 12G SDI. Don't skimp on the cable because you're going to save a buck or two here and there. So if you're, like, planning a new facility, absolutely plan for 4K because it will become a normal and everything is going to accept it. If you're, like, you know, in a 1080 system and it's working great, and, like, I don't see the need. Like, you don't have to go pull 12G SDI and get your system up to 4K. If you're going to pull new cable, again, like, yeah, just pull the right stuff. But I think 4K is becoming more normal, but it still is, like, it takes a lot of bandwidth, like, on your internet. People don't think about that one. And honestly, probably over 50% of our viewers are watching it on your phone.
On 360p because they don't know to go in to change the settings.
Exactly. And even watching YouTube in 720 on your phone this size looks good.
Right.
Like, you know, and so it's like, if a majority, and even uploading to Instagram, like, you upload in 1080, like, Reels are 1080 at max.
Yeah.
And so it's like, the need for it, so I would say it's still slightly overrated to stream in 4K. And a lot of the stuff that we'll do is, like, I'll do a 1080 stream and we'll record in 4K on the camera or 6K on the camera for post. And that's like, yeah, that makes sense.
All right, we had a question here from James. Is the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K still relevant, or is it overrated at this point in 2024?
The 4K, I think that camera's overrated. Like, the Pocket 4K,
yeah,
I would not really invest in that one.
For people that were buying Pocket 4Ks, is it now go get the 6K? What do you think?
If you like the Blackmagic ecosystem, like, yeah, the 6K is so much better of a camera. Like, the EF mount, the sensor's better dynamic range. But then there's other options, like FX30, FX3, like, great 4K cameras that have awesome features. And you don't have camera control, but I feel like a lot of these people that are running Pockets are running wireless anyways, and so it's like they don't even have the camera control aspect. So I feel like there's other cameras in that 4K range that look fantastic.
That goes right into my next overrated, underrated. For churches underneath 1,000 people, broadcast setup, live shading systems.
Oh, I feel like you can do so much without live shading. So I would say it's an overrated thing. Like, we do so many live streams and live productions without live shaders that are in massive rooms. And so I feel like a lot of that can be dialed in with your lighting. Honestly, if you have good lighting, you shouldn't be having to change your exposure constantly. You shouldn't be having to ride your iris. And then even the live shading stations that, like, we have ran, it was literally for controlling brightness and not even controlling color or anything like that. And so it's like, it's easy to dial in my opinion, the color on your cameras with a LUT, with, you know, whatever, just spending some time dialing in the settings. And then the only change that you're having to do live is exposure, which at that point you just train your operator. And it's easy for the operator doesn't even have to know if he's overexposed or underexposed. As long as your director knows, can call it out, and the operator can change it, you're fine.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think it's overrated for sure.
Sweet. All right, we got time for one final review. We're going to look at Pathway Church. Pathway Church uses 3 Pocket Cinema 6K Pros and 2 Sigma 24 to 105 f4s. They do have Canon 70-200 and Ursa Mini 4.6K PL with Fujinon 8.5 to 170. And they would just like help on camera technique and director pacing. So let's give it a listen and look here.
I did pull it up on my computer too, to kind of get a better color. say the pacing, at least right now, is a little long on this shot.
Yeah, and this
Like-
was right after the countdown ended. They opened into this shot as he sang, and so there was no like establishing shot or anything like that. So far all we've seen is our worship leader here.
Yeah, and there's a lot happening on the stage right now, like that you want to capture.
Yeah.
Like the drums are happening, the guitars are happening.
What do you think about those pan across the front line shots?
I don't like them. Like, it's like pick someone, get a shot, and then pick someone else and get a shot. And it adds like, that looks like that was their main camera too. But usually I'd like leave that camera on your worship leader, and then like one of
Right.
the other cameras would pick off a BGV, and then your guitar. And there's the guitar finally. And then get your drums. Get your keys.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'd say like the pacing could definitely pick up a bunch and show what else is happening. And again, if you don't have like if you don't have a handheld operator on the stage, it's like get a camera locked off on the drums, get a camera locked off on the keys, and like add those angles in there to help tell the story. If you want to get fancy, throw them on a motorized slider so that way it's like moving a little bit. But I haven't seen like the drums at all, and like that's a big part of what's happening right now. They're building a lot.
Yeah, drummer looks pretty in the dark too, so figuring out some type of lighting for your drum cage I think would help a lot.
Yeah, lighting drum cages is a fun
Yeah.
one, especially if you have a roof on it.
Any tips for people that are doing these servo zooms with an LED wall in the background and you start to see the banding? Is that just something you just really can't get around it, even if the wall's a really good wall?
Yeah, I mean, this wall almost looks like it's a lower resolution LED
Sure.
wall. I saw a bunch of banding at the beginning as well, like flicker banding. So
Do you
that
think-
could
is
be, like, changing
banding-
your shutter angle?
You know, some people are saying that banding is something that bothers us tech guys, but to the normal viewer, they don't really notice it. I mean, what do you think?
I mean, if you go to like 1440, like 14 minutes and 40 seconds with the baptismal shot,
Uh-huh.
it's like there's a lot of flicker happening. And
And
I feel
that
like
draws
that's,
your eye.
that's distracting to a viewer, in my opinion, if it's like that much banding. If it's a little bit, I'm sure the viewer's not gonna like notice, but it might, like, that's a lot of flicker and banding happening right there.
So since he's using these Pocket 6K Pros, maybe playing with that shutter angle would be helpful?
Yeah, for sure. You should, because you have those Blackmagic cameras, you should be able to get rid of that. The only time that you can't get rid of that is if it's a really cheap LED wall. Sometimes they're just... I talked to someone last night about that issue where it was just like, the LED wall sadly was so cheap that it was impossible to get rid of the flicker. And that's where, yeah, getting a cheaper wall will hurt you.
Yeah. The audio mix sounds pretty good to me from whenever I was listening to it. I think that it's pretty solid. I like that you're trying to incorporate movement into the shots. I think you just need some refining. Like, I like that even though you got a camera on sticks, at least you're trying to move it and it's not just locked off all the time. Mm-hmm. What about like the technique for like figure eight swimminess or whatever? Do you do any of that stuff still?
I try to stay away from like the figure eight because a lot of times like the figure eight can be, it's just too repetitive and gets too distracting. What I would prefer to do is like loosen up the head of your tripod to let in a lot of your natural body movement like happen on camera. I don't know if you can show the full screen because I have like this setup right here, but like a lot of times what you could do is if you have something like this, if you loosen it up to where like right now it's actually pretty tight. This was like a speaking setup and I'll like loosen up my tensions on it a little bit more to where you want it to get it to that point where if you're opping it like this or even opping it with both handles here, at 200, this is almost a 300 millimeter lens. At that lens, trying to keep someone centered with that looser tension, you're just going to see your natural body movement end up in the lens, especially with how long of a lens it is. And so usually I'd loosen up the tensions, and I'll tell the ops to do that, to loosen up your tensions to where you're getting some natural shake in it versus like purposely trying to like do a figure eight thing. It just adds a little bit of that body movement into the camera, which I feel like looks more natural on camera. And then usually for like speaking stuff, I tighten the tensions down to where it's like a lot smoother of a movement and you're not seeing any of that like body wiggle or anything happening, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. So one thing we've kind of circled around is this idea of servo zooms and different stuff. I see you got the DZO film there.
Yep.
What are you using? Nucleus Nano stuff with those? Are you really pushing people to the new Canon servos? How important do you think that is to have built-in motorized zoom versus just adding on an attachment for people that want that?
Yeah, the cool thing with this lens, and actually like my full long form review of this is coming out next week, and I kind of talk about the servos a little bit. The idea was like this has a built-in servo, or it will have a built-in servo for the 10 grand ish mark, and that's a big deal. Like having a servoed lens that this focal range is a big deal, and I think like if you can get the servos, it's gonna make everything so much easier. In my opinion, you want your follow cam up because the follow cam is the most important shot that you have, even though it can be sometimes the most boring or uninspiring shot, but it is your main shot. And so having that operator as comfortable as possible. And so being able to sit behind the camera and just hold your controllers makes it so comfortable. And so that's where I think like your follow shot, having a servo is a really big deal. Obviously, like the Canon and Fuji servo lenses can be really expensive, and not a lot of people can afford them. So having options like this, and even like this is just set up with the Tilta nucleus on it at the moment because $300, and you have zoom and focus control. That's pretty awesome.
Have you had any issues with those disconnecting? I had a friend telling me they purchased a bunch and were having disconnecting issues with them.
This one, the only issue that I've had is the controller staying charged, which when I talked to Tilta, it was just a faulty battery internal, is what they're telling me. So I kind of leave it, plugged it into power. I haven't had an issue with it disconnecting. I've had an issue with longer range, it not being super smooth on the zoom and focus, but that's like when we're running on a rhythm and we're like several, 40, 50 feet away, which kind of makes sense. I think if you're running it right here locally, you're only a foot away, and I haven't had any disconnecting issues there. I don't know. I've also never run multiple of them in the same room, and that could be a problem. For the, the more expensive stuff, like it's on that gimbal, but the Teradek RT Motion, is amazing. It's quite expensive, but it's really good fizz for one, long distance, but then two, you can plug in. They have a zoom and focus controller that you can plug into the brain of it, and then it's wired, and you're not having to deal with wireless. So it's like if you want a nice servoed setup and you are not buying a servo lens, that is a great option, is using that. Because then you're not dealing with wireless and all that jazz.
Gotcha. All right, last question for Drake, and then we're going to let him hop off the live stream. We're going to continue for another hour, guys. But you talked a lot about the budget option of FX30 and FX3. What do you think is your ideal setup for that? What kind of lens would you pair with that? Would you rig it out on a some type of cage? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely try to rig it out with like a cage, maybe even like a V-mount battery system. And then in my head, that's more of like a follow, or not a follow cam, a like handheld type of camera.
Does it need a monitor?
It kind of depends on how small you want to make it. Like if you want a really compact package, you could keep it super compact, slap a Teradek on there or something like that. And then it's like the Teradeks eliminate the converter need anyways, because it's HDMI in. And so like that's your converter. The thing that you could deal with, and this is just a big deal, but the pockets have this anyways, is latency. Anytime you use HDMI, you're going to have more latency than if you use SDI, and that's just kind of how like a lot of these cameras are built. G8, GH5s, for example, have a lot of latency.
Mm-hmm.
If you're doing a live,
5 frames.
yeah, if you're doing a live stream, it's not a big deal if you sync up your audio. But if you have iMac, it can be a big deal.
Yep.
The FX3s and 30s can have the same issue. The pockets can have the same issue. So usually, if I'm using those, it's like in a handheld environment type of thing.
Would you go like a Sigma 18-35 on those as well? Like on the FX30 maybe, since it's APS-C, or for a stage cam?
That is my go-to lens for stage cam on the budget, is like 18-35, just great lens. If you want something a little bit more spicy, like the SLR Magic, like full frame primes look incredible and are not expensive. I have one for my A7S III, and it's a full frame prime lens that are extremely fast. So those are really fun lenses that you could use with your FX3, or like any of the like
the
Sony
G
glass.
Master.
Yeah, like that. You can get the 70-200s and the 16-35s, and those look great.
Yeah.
And then what I'm using here is the Sigma 24-35, because that's a full frame f2 lens as well. So I know Sigma makes some E-mount lenses as well, but yeah, if you want like a nicer lens, the SLR Magic lenses look great for Sony.
That's cool.
Those are fun.
It is very intriguing to possibly switch over to a Sony system. For me, it's like they're expensive, and then I'd have to change all of my stuff from Panasonic, and I'm just like, I don't know if I can do it right now. It's so much money. So,
Yeah.
but they are great cameras. Well, guys, a drop in the chat, just a thank you to Drake for hopping on this first hour with us, and all the thoughts and expertise he's given. And as we let him sign off, I want him just to tell us a little bit about how you guys can connect with him or any services he might be able to offer to you guys. So Drake, take it away.
Sure. Yeah. If you want to reach out, I try to message everyone back on Instagram. So it's at Drake Kelch is the Instagram account that I use. And then if you want to reach out via email, info@laddesigns.co is the best email. Multiple people on our team see that email, so we try not to miss any of those emails. And yeah, we'd love to help. I love helping churches in general. And so if you need some consulting or training, or you just want to bounce ideas off, just feel free to reach out, and yeah, happy to help.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you so much. Thanks for your thoughts, dude. And you guys go follow him on Instagram, his YouTube channel, and all the different socials. And maybe we'll get you on the live stream again sometime.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
Awesome, dude. All right, we'll see you soon.
Sounds good.
Well, guys, say thank you seriously in the chat. So much gold there. Seriously, like just being able to chat with Drake and hear some of his thoughts from somebody who's been doing this for years, really a pioneer in like this church live streaming space and trying to take things to the next level. And I love what he kept saying about, whatever helps tell the story of what's happening in the room, as we're directing things as a live stream director, that idea of the goal is not just to have the prettiest cameras, to have the best gear. It's to help tell the story online to your church online community of what's happening in the room and trying to make them feel a part of it. So just so many little golden nuggets in there. If you hopped on the live stream late today, make sure you go back after we finish, and I'll try to add chapter markers in there for all of the things we talked about. So let's continue on with our live stream today. I've got the chat pulled up here, and I would love to just do some Q&A with you guys. Let's see here. We kind of covered some of this stuff about the Blackmagic Pocket 4K already, the FX3, so I'm going to take those off. Lots of thank yous there. Very cool. Yeah, there's a good thought from Music Man. Optical low-pass filters can Can the camera be a little more forgiving on the LED wall moire? That's what I've heard, is that with the low pass filters, it can help with the moire. So that's interesting. Not with banding, but with moire. Yeah, nice hearing a different point of view from Drake. I agree. All right. Well, I want to just bring up one little thing I ran across and see if you guys have heard of MODUE.
Introducing MODUE, the new way to control everything. Touch, slide, spin, click, create, work, play. With MODUE, everything is just one action away. Decide what you want to do, no matter how complex. Assign it a control, and go. Mute annoying teammate? Check. Control music playback? Check. Scrub through video in Premiere Pro? Check. Powerful streaming controls? Check, check, check. And you're not limited to your computer. Raise the blinds, change the hue of your smart lights, put your boss on snooze. Okay, maybe not that one. Yet. The One Touch brings the power of shortcuts and widgets to your existing setup. See what's playing at a glance. Check your messages. Control your smart home, visually and intuitively. Glide into perfection with the slide, controlling anything from individual app volumes to the hue of your smart lights. Oh wait, click. Use the 4 mechanical switches and magic toggle to instantly mute your mic, run macros, launch apps, stop and start recording, or just send your favorite emoji. And with Spin, you get an extra 3 knobs to control anything from color gradients and shadows to EQ. Add future modules to level up your setup. One XLR and next upcoming modules mean MODUE is the only device you'll need. Bring them all together with a satisfying magnetic click. Don't stop there, keep going, and reorder them however and whenever you want. And with a vibrant community constantly creating new recipes, the possibilities are always expanding. If you can think it, MODUE can do it. Unlock your potential with MODUE, the next-gen modular control station. Back MODUE today and reimagine everything.
I don't know if you guys have heard of that. I just ran across it the other day and thought, it's kind of an interesting development. It looks like it is a Kickstarter, and I definitely hesitate to back Kickstarters. One of the first videos on my channel was talking about how I got totally scammed on Kickstarter with a project that just never came to fruition, and you have no way to get your money back. But it looked like a souped up version of a Stream Deck type thing, but with more. You've got the Stream Decks that have the dials on them now, but I think there's going to be more and more options for media guys like us in the future for things that can control multiple systems. Obviously, Stream Deck with Companion is a super powerful thing. And I don't know if you guys are using it. If there's a cool way that you're using Companion or a Stream Deck in your services, will you just drop that in the chat? Because I'm always intrigued on how people are doing things. I mean, I know some people even have gone so far as to hook up their main whole power distro to Alexa, which scares me. Somebody could just come in and be like, Alexa, turn off the sound system. I don't know, on accident. As often as Siri tries to talk to me, I don't trust Alexa either. But we've started doing more and more with Companion, with the Stream Decks, with MIDI. Even just this last week, I figured out a new little fun way to control some things it solves a problem that we have. Because I always say the best technology solves a problem, right? Well, I've got a future video coming about us implementing some drum triggers into our live stream mix for our snare and kick. And that's been a fun little journey of trying to figure out the best way to do that, and settings and all those things and blending. But just this last Wednesday night at rehearsal, we realized on one part of the song, we are not actually, he's playing with the snares off. And so he's just playing open snare drum. Well, the triggers were still triggering our snare sample. And so it's just for a short section of the song. My mixing audio engineers I just don't know that I trust them to remember to take that, to mute the triggers during that portion. And so I started thinking like, how can I automate that? You know, we run everything through ProPresenter timeline. And so could I just add MIDI notes and somehow send that to our M32 to tell it to mute those channels? In theory, it sounded easy to do. The M32 has MIDI in. I had a free MIDI out port from our ProPresenter little 2x2 box. So I just ran the cable over there. It says it should be channel 2 and then whatever, you know, number corresponds to your channel on the board. MIDI channel 2, not the channel M32. But the problem was the M32 and X32s only respond to CC messages, which are like MIDI control messages, not MIDI notes. And ProPresenter can only send MIDI notes with different velocities on the channels. So then I went through this whole journey of figuring that out, and now we're using BOEM MIDI Translator Pro to send from ProPresenter the note. BOEM translates it and sends it out of output 2 over to the M32, and on the timeline that it plays, it just automatically does it. It mutes the channel. Now, I did realize, like Playback, the app for multitracks, if you're using that, it can actually send notes. It can send CC and MC controls. So there might be other systems that you have that use MIDI, but they use those other languages. I did submit a request for ProPresenter to include that CC control out of just like the options for that. If you guys, if that sounds interesting to you, do me a favor and go say the same thing, because I would love to not have to have another piece of software in between as a failure point, right? Because we've already got enough things to worry about and things breaking. So hopefully BOEM MIDI Translator Pro just is rock solid. I've heard great things about it. Do you use it? Have you used it? We're going to give it a go this Sunday. If it doesn't mute the snare drum, it's not the end of the world, right? So that's one little fun adventure that I've been going on this last week. And so let me just check out the chat and see how you guys are doing. Danny says, hopefully the church I volunteer at will get money in the budget to improve our lighting. Yeah, you know, doing lighting right is expensive for sure. There are some budget options out there that we use that I've reviewed here on the channel that you can check out if you, depending on which area of your lighting system you need to upgrade, whether that's key light, effect light. There's some budget options out there. I would say for effect light, you can go way more budget friendly than key light. Devin says this feels a lot like the Stream Deck, but more modular. Yeah, that's what I liked about it, was the modularity. So I hope it does come to fruition with Kickstarter. I'm not going to back it, but maybe some of you guys want to. If it's worth its weight, though, it will get supported enough to make it to market. So, I mean, I have done other things on Kickstarter that have been good, like the Y-Roll light that I backed early on, and we still use it every week as our cable cam. They don't make them anymore, I don't think. There wasn't enough demand for them. But yeah, so I hope that does actually come to fruition. Brian asked, do you think this can eventually replace Stream Deck and ATEM Mini? No, I mean, it's not going to have any video inputs on it. It didn't look like, but you know, Stream Deck, it could replace it. It's going to have to get widely adopted and supported by lots of different integrations of softwares and hardware. And that's kind of the thing that the Stream Deck has going for it, is that it's kind of built already like a community around it. So that might be tough. If you change the recording settings of the Blackmagic from 4K to 1080p, do you lose the quality on stream via HDMI? So the HDMI out of the Pocket 4Ks, I believe, it's been a minute since I played with it. You can choose whether it's auto 4K or 1080p, I believe. And so at least on the GH5s and things like that, the quality coming out of the HDMI is not affected by what recording mode we're in. You can be in AVC HD 10 megabits per second to record 7 hours of video at a really low bit rate, but the HDMI is still going to read the full sensor data. So what I would do is just record and switch between the two and see if they look worse. It was really interesting. I did a test this week. I have a monitor mounted over here that I was testing out because it is a $160 monitor from Viltrox that has SDI and HDMI with pass-through of both of those. And that's a really cheap monitor that has SDI. So I wanted to test it out. I'll maybe tell you guys more about it in the future. But one thing that I noticed was when I tested the HDMI output of our, the DVX200, it's the only camera we have that has SDI and HDMI. The HDMI does 4K uncompressed, I think. Obviously, it's not doing that for our live stream. It has a look applied. It looked crispy. It looked good, like always. And then I thought, okay, well, I wanted to test the latency between the HDMI and the SDI. So then I hooked up the SDI output of the DVX200. You can't do them simultaneously, but the latency was the same, but the quality out of the SDI was much lower. And it was really interesting, even just going straight back to our ATEM, the DVX200, it's an older camera. And so for whatever reason, it just doesn't have as good a quality picture. So we're just going to stick with the HDMI. It didn't have any latency difference, and the quality of the picture was better. So if you're interested in this little monitor, let me know. And depending on how much interest there is, we'll see where it makes it on the production list. What other things you got going over here, guys? Ben, can someone point me to a place to get more info about Companion? It depends on what you want to do. There's lots of YouTubers that talk about how to use Companion. I would say just probably in the Church Sound Media Techs Facebook group is a good place to just search Companion and maybe get more ideas. What are some ways you can get the church to upgrade from Easyworship to ProPresenter, the pros and the cons? Well, I would say, like everything else that I've always said, to get me to switch to a different thing, it's got to be worth it, right? Like for me to switch from GH5s to Sony, the cost of doing that and the time it would take me to learn a whole new camera system, to retrain volunteers, like it's got to be so much better and solve so many problems or make things that much better than we already have, that it's worth the cost of money and time. So for people to want to switch from ProPresenter to Easyworship, I would ask, what are the struggles you're having with Easyworship? What drives you crazy about Easyworship? We used Easyworship at my last church, so it's been 15 years since I've used it. I don't know how much they've progressed and kept up with things. We use ProPresenter in ways that's really not even probably meant to be used, and it's a workhorse for us. It does a ton of things. And I've trashed on ProPresenter before in past videos whenever we were having lots of struggles. Overall, though, I think it is definitely the best presentation software out there. And if it's a money investment thing, I think just evaluating how important is it for this software to work. And then we're paying on a yearly basis. I don't know if it's $300 a year, you're paying $1 a day or something. It's not that much for an essential piece of software. And so I think that the things it could allow you to do are so, like, it's just like whatever you can imagine. You could live stream from it. You could use Resi with it. You could use it for sending your hallways a different announcement feed layer. You could send fill-in key to your video switchers. all the different feature sets that they keep adding to it, I think it's just super powerful. So I don't know how to convince your leadership that you need it unless they understand the hardship that has happened and how ProPresenter would solve that. If all you're doing is putting white text up to a projector, Easyworship is probably fine. Maybe you struggle with finding Bible passages really quickly on the fly with your pastor. Well, ProPresenter has that built in, you know. If you don't want to try ProPresenter and it's cost too much money, maybe you could just try Presenter by Worship Tools. Maybe that would be a different flavor. I think it's still free. I don't know. Let's look, guys. Is Worship Tools free? Let's see. I can't type. Worship Tools Presenter. Pricing. So all worship tool plans include presenter, planning, music stand, and community. I don't know what community is. Maybe that's like a people database. So free is not much cloud storage, 10 users, 15 items per service, 3 songs, some announcement slides, a video, 5 service items. So I don't know that I ever have more than 15 in my planning center plans. Unlimited services, unlimited songs, CCLI import and auto reporting, and that's completely free. So that's interesting. Here's a breakdown of Presenter. You can use it online or offline. It has Bibles. Obviously, you can add whatever backgrounds you want to it. Lyrics import from song select on all 3 versions. No stage display in the free version. So if you wanted a stage display, you have to go to the paid. Mobile remote is not free. So they kind of tier it, you know. Simultaneous sessions is not free. So let's say for us at our church, we do have multiple sessions going at once in our kids wing and things like that. So we're looking at $30 a month. That's the same cost. Well, no, it's not. That's the same cost as one ProPresenter machine, right? Isn't that the licensing? Their licensing so confusing. It would definitely be a cheaper option. There is that free availability depending on the size of your church. Josiah, can you still submit live streams? Well, we got 30 minutes and I've got like 5 in the bag, so I don't know that I don't know if it would be worth it for you to take the time to do that. So you might wait till next month. If you don't get your live stream reviewed, there is the option for you to do a live coaching call with me, where if you wanted part of that to be me actually reviewing one-on-one with you the live stream, I believe there's a link in the description to my TidyCal. I try to keep that pretty locked in and updated, so that way if something is available, then I actually am available. Sometimes that doesn't always happen. But it's like $50 for half an hour, $100 for the full hour. If that's something that interests you, I do those a couple times a week usually. So yeah. Okay, there's some other stuff rolling in here. Let's do it. Let's just hop into some live stream reviews in this last 24 minutes that we got. I'll try to do these a little quicker than usual so I can maybe knock out all of the remaining ones. So we'll get rid of these that we've already talked about. And let's pull up our next one here. We did Mosaik Church. We did Kelowna. Let's see. Here we go. New Church in OKC. Says they've got a Blackmagic ATEM, and their biggest struggle still is that they're running everything in 720p for some reason. And it's just the sermon.
Did a great job last week, and was so glad he stepped up. So cool.
I like your lower third.
Illustration was that he played football, and while his uncle was in.
Yeah, it's definitely lower res for some reason. I would say if your camera's Yeah, it's 720/60. Surely your cameras can do better than that. If they are still older broadcast cameras and they can only do 720, I don't know. There may be some type of upscaling service, but it's not the end of the world. It's just even at 720, the image doesn't look very sharp. So I wonder if your bit rate is maybe set too low. I'm looking at your logo in the top right. Like, it's pretty pixelated as well. So Tommy looks good on the camera. Like, his white balance, skin tones all look good. I like the backdrop. It's real clean. Let's see if he starts walking around here. Okay, here's another camera. I would maybe tighten that up a little bit for your mid, where his feet are closer to the bottom. Good headroom, though, on that. Let me listen.
I sure would call people by name. Tommy, who do you think touched your thumb? Right? I'd be like, Jason. I was right every time. Like, for real.
I feel like I heard some plosives and stuff coming from your pastor mic.
Thumbs up, time to play 7-Up.
Yeah,
I was
did you
the
hear
greatest of all, but
Listen.
I was the GOAT of heads down, thumbs up, time to play 7-Up.
So again, some breath noise. If you can pull that back away from his opening right there just a little bit, if he doesn't want the windscreen. And also the mic just sounds a little thin. That I think you could clean it up and make it a little better for the live stream. I like that. I can hear laughter, audience mics, things like that. That's cool. So with just those two camera angles to go on, that's pretty much all the feedback I can give you. Love New Church. Funny story about New Church. New Church, I played a D Now there in Oklahoma City probably whenever I was 19 maybe. And we were doing it for their youth group. And this kid walks in and my buddy was like, hey, that guy named Nick over there, he plays keys. And we didn't have a keys player at the time. And so I was like, well, do you want to ask him? Like, do you know if he's any good? And so he's like, I've heard he's pretty good. And so he goes up to Nick, I think he was 15 he was 16. He did have a car. Do you want to play keys with us? And so he's like, well, let me run home and get my Motif Yamaha keyboard and I'll be up here. And so he just jumped in with us and played the weekend. And then for the next 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, he was with us in the band, traveled all over the place with us. Now he is one of the main keys players at Life Church. He's played on Passion Stage with people. And I just love the heck out of Nicky Noodle. So appreciate you, bro. But yeah, New Church, keep it up. I would say get to 1080. Come on, you can do it. Yeah, I think he took over New Church after Monty Priest retired, maybe. All right, thank you, New Church, for submitting. Let's go to our next one here. We did Pathway Church already. All right, circling back here. NewStory Church. They have a Blackmagic Ursa's, Pocket Cinemas. Looking for a way to make their shot composition better. All right, let's pull it up over here. You guys enjoying the live stream today? Y'all are quiet in the chat today. So will I. Don't let the lyrics go out, right? Oh, see, she already. It's like, it's tough. It's tough. And she's got an iPad there to look at. Oh, wait, no, that's behind her. Looks great against the LED wall in my vantage point. I love that shot where it's showing the crowd over the shoulder of your keys player. A little movement there on the side stage. Down the line, a little less headroom maybe. I know you're trying not to cut off her hand, but I think you could lower it a little bit. I like the drum shot with the slider through the glass. I wish he had more real light on him maybe. A little slow pan out or zoom out. I love that with the guitar. Was that a focus pull? Yeah, look at that focus pull. Come on. I like the way you're framing that underneath his headstock. That was cool. It seems like the room is really dark, maybe. Like, just when I've seen the audience shots, I wish maybe everything wasn't quite as dark. But that's just whatever your taste is. Let's see what happens on the big hit here. I wonder if the toms are panned too far. I feel like it's way over here. The vocals could come up just a tiny. And you got house lights going, it looks like, so. Audio sounds pretty good. I think your lower thirds could come down a little bit. I saw some 3-line stuff too. I would try to not do that. White balance, I think looks pretty good. Maybe it's a touch green. Yeah, you see the Easy Rig over there. Did you see him creeping off? Yeah.
Heavenly Father.
All right, those are my thoughts. Those are my thoughts. Did y'all see anything? Hey, sweet. I'm glad you're here, Ben. Yes. All right, let's move on to our next one. We will delete NewStory. Thank you for submitting. Portadown Elim from Luke. They have Black Magic Ursa Minis. There's a common theme of that today. A lot of black magic out there in the church. Improvements on sound and camera angles would be much appreciated. 1 gimbal, 2nd camera op, handheld Ursa Mini. They mix their audio for in-house and our stream at the same time through our house desk with separate feeds. Yeah, that's what we are currently doing as well. So let's pull this up. And we'll see here.
So shout Jesus from the mountains, Jesus in the streets, Jesus in the darkness over every enemy, Jesus for my family.
The drummer's pretty dark. I like the reverb. Okay, so he was saying, I think this is part of the struggle, is just the way their worship center's set up. That would be a little tough. You've got a lot of balcony overhanging, but the balcony is really close and everything's really wide. So I don't know that I love this camera angle, but maybe it's like one of the best options that you have to show the space. Let's listen and watch a little bit more.
Jesus in the darkness over every enemy, Jesus for my family, I sing the holy name, Jesus, 'cause your name is power, your name is healing, your name.
A little long hang on that bass. I haven't seen any camera movement like the gimbal stuff you're talking about. That would be really helpful because the locked off shots I think look good, like sharp, super sharp. Looks good to me. It's a little disengaging for me, this shot, because he's constantly looking down at his iPad, and it's like I'm never seeing his eyes connect with me as he's singing. Not that we're gonna look in the cameras, but like, I don't know, maybe it's just that angle. Like I wonder. You got confidence monitor up there, and you got that stained glass, in the background. Maybe if that camera was more of a side shot and it had those lights and the stained glass up above him in front of his looking space, if that makes sense. So like if I'm here and I'm looking this way, And those lights in the stained glass are right here, maybe. So just pull it back a little bit. What else do I see? Okay, here's your handheld. A little underexposed. Yeah, there you go. I like that mid shot with the handheld. Looks like, man, they're right there on top. That's cool. Let's listen a little bit more.
In his faithful hand. Jesus, praise the Lord, the lifter up my head, and praise the rock.
Yeah, I was just trying to see if you could hear audience in there. You know, it might be tough to have a straight on shot. That's one thing I haven't seen is like down the aisle, straight ahead. Maybe it's just the setup of your church. You got to make it work, man. I love that shot. That looks, with the handheld, it looks better than the on the tripod. What do you do for preach in this setting? Still from the side, and then the other side, 45. So you don't have any straight ons. Yeah, that's tough. It's not very visually interesting with his brown shirt on a grayish brown wall. So I don't know. I like that composition. That's good. Okay, those are my thoughts. Thank you, Portadown Elim, for submitting. We got 10 minutes. 10 minutes, folks. Submit your questions now. If you have anything you want to chat about in these last 10 minutes, throw in the chat. If anybody does want to submit a live stream and just do a super chat, you know, I would probably be bought. That's okay. Life Church Mount Orab. Thank you, Devin, for submitting. They have 5 static wall-mounted G85s with vintage lenses. Yeah, that's where I started. And then a G70 camcorder into a Blackmagic Constellation. Behringer X32 is based on the main room mix with a couple tweaks. So let's hop over here. And pull this one up. I like that you started on a wide shot to establish the room a little bit. It's kind of a mid shot, but I maybe wouldn't hang on it that long. This is more of your medium shot. Listen to that snare drum though. I feel like it's a little too verbed out. Listen to it here. It definitely cuts through the mix, but it might be a little too verby. A lot of verb.
Let praise be a weapon that conquers all anxiety. Let it rise. Let praise arise.
They are also in a gym.
We sing your name in the dark in a chain.
Cameras are wall mounted with cages for protection. And he does say this week in particular they were hanging on shots too long. So I think just how do you get your people to catch the vision of switching quicker? I think it's possibly, hey, let's come into my office and let's watch some streams of what I'm kind of hoping we eventually, you know, look like or feel like. And then just talking through what you like about those and what you don't like. And how can you, the struggle you might have as a director, if you only have 3 shots and they're locked off, it kind of feels weird to just constantly pop between them. I would stay away from dissolves too, especially if you want to increase the speed of the cuts. This shot feels like, I know I'm always saying, like, I want people to feel like they're there in the audience. That literally feels like a camera shot next to someone in the audience. I don't know if I like it though. I'm glad you put some light on your drummer. At least I can see him there. That's cool. Gyms are hard for sure. Let's listen a little more.
Break down every wall. We'll watch the giants fall. Our fear cannot survive when we praise you. The God of breakthroughs on our side.
A lot of lower thirds. 3 lines.
With all creation cry, God, we praise you. We praise
Kick sounds good though. I would say for you guys, what I would advise is, I know you have 3 that are locked off, and that may just be part of your circumstance of being in the gym with the cages on the wall. If you could just get one person operating these, operating a separate handheld camera to have some variety, I think that will make it feel like it's worth it to switch quicker and give more variety to your live stream as a whole. So that's what I would say. The next investment I would make would be in that direction. But hold the phones, everyone, because we got our first super chat of the day. Let's go. Thank you for the $2 super chat. Damien says, is $2 enough? Ha, ha, ha. Why, thank you. I believe it is. We're going to go with that. $2 will buy me, well, after YouTube takes 40% of that super chat, that'll leave me with $1.25. So, yeah, I can stop and get a little drink from Quick Trip on the way home, I guess. So, no, seriously, thank you. You didn't have to do that. So, Damien, let's pull yours up here and see what you're working with. I feel like we've checked yours out before, right? You got the X32 Canon Vixia R800 A10 Mini. Help with audio to make things more level and full. All right, let's check it out. How, guys, you give some thoughts there in the chat as well. How can Damien make things more filled out and better sounding? Yeah. Here we go. Praise.
You guys got to participate with this one, right? Let everything that has breath praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Let everything that has breath praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Praise in the valley. I'll praise on a mountain. I'll praise when I'm sure. I'll praise when I'm doubting. I'll praise when outnumbered. I'll praise when surrounded.
Well, for me, fullness, a lot of times, Damien, I think starts with the foundation of like bass. And so I see you got a drummer there playing electronic drums. And as for me, the audio mix, I think, needs to be a little more balanced, and that will make it feel more full. So like the drums themselves need to be a little brought up in the mix. If you have tracks running, fill it out with those tracks too. So that kind of adds that like foundation. And then, you know, your other melodic instruments will sit on top of those a little bit. And then vocally, you want those just barely above that to where you got the clarity of the vocal. But right now I think the vocals are definitely the leading instrument and everything's just kind of like underneath that. Let's listen.
This praise is a shout that brings Jericho down.
I'm even hearing some clipping.
As long as I'm breathing, I got a reason to praise the Lord, oh my soul. Praise.
Yeah, I think at least for this week, whatever the mix was, you know, your vocals are they're just too hot in the mix. And so you can't really hear the other stuff. But it looks like your drummer's killing it over there on that little TD10 or whatever that is that you guys are making it work. But yeah, I would just say if you can separate maybe your stream mix from your house mix even more. I have a video on my channel. If you just search broadcast of the way we do it, that way you could even like pre-fade those drums for your stream mix to where it's not dependent on what's happening in the room. But they're electronic, so you should be able to get those up nice and loud. Yeah, some other thoughts here in the chat. So, and I would say if this is your only shot for the whole stream, do you ever change it? Do you zoom it in for preaching or anything? Yeah, everything on stage just looks a little dark. So, you know, I might adjust my settings there. And if nothing else, like just having one person run that to where they could possibly follow the pastor around would probably be beneficial for you guys. So, well, thanks for the super chat, dude. I really appreciate it. And you didn't have to do that, but I do. I greatly appreciate it from my fellow Okie. All right, is there any other pressing questions? No, we got some good suggestions there in the chat as well. Well, I hope that you guys enjoyed this Friday live stream. It's our monthly time to do this, and I'm trying to get a guest on every month for us to kind of review your live streams together. So I will close the form for the live stream submissions after this today, and I'll open that back up in a couple of weeks. At the end of March, it's Easter, which is crazy, but the Friday before that, we'll have another one of these, and we'll have another guest on as well. So if you guys enjoyed that, maybe not just having to listen to my voice the whole time, let me know, send me a DM on Instagram. If you got any suggestions for people that I should have on, leave those in the comment section of this video. And remember, guys, we can do a lot of great things, right? Let's do it all for God's glory. We'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.